for hugely innovative productions involving both punk and performance artists. In his latest production, he's included dozens of dancers who aren't dancers. Stephen Smith reports.
In my youth, if anyone knew that I was a dancer, I'd get my head kicked in.
Michael showing his arse off.
Angelic and demonic and classical and punk.
Is there a punk revival on? You might not have noticed it, but David Cameron's been called a punk and Ed Miliband says he wishes he'd been one. So it's refreshing to meet a punk of the old school, the old dance school, in fact. Do you still believe in a punk ethos?
Well, why are there 48 people who aren't trained in this piece? I guess it's that idea of there are 3 chords, now form a band. It's basically 3 steps maybe in the whole dance.
The other punks were spitting and cussing, but critics saw signs of the classical tradition in Clark's work. It was a rare case of making a silk purse with a pierced ear. It wasn't an obvious career path for a lad from Aberdeen. Was it a bit Billy Elliot?
Where my mum lives now is basically the toughest town in Scotland, and those are the kids that you got in with to protect, or I got in with to protect me, because if anyone knew that I was a dancer, I'd get my head kicked in,
really?
Basically. So it's quite a hardcore place.
How did you get into it, do you think? Were you just dancing as a child? You just had that sense of this feeling wonderful and right, or was there... No,
not at all. I remember from the age of 4 to 5 doing the same exercises, holding onto a chair and thinking, I thought when I became 5 I'd suddenly be able to maybe drop the chair or do something I couldn't do just magically. And I sort of learned something then that it doesn't quite work like that, but it was really a lot of repetition, and it took a while to get interesting. I guess because I was a boy, the only boy, I got a lot of encouragement regardless of whether I had talent or not, and that went a long way, really.
Clark turned down a position with the Royal Ballet. He once had a job attaching cigarettes to garden gnomes for the artist Sarah Lucas. He's come a long way from the days when he couldn't afford an entire leotard. Clark collaborated with Mark E. Smith of The Fall, the Chelsea pensioner of punk.
No, the whistle test was very funny because all the parents of the group were waiting to one of the first times they'd been on TV. So they're all waiting to see the drummer and the bass player. All they get is like Michael showing his arse off.
Mark's work was a sort of clarion call to me to start doing my own work. You don't have to be a big company, you don't have to be the Royal Ballet or EMI. You can do things your own way, and I found that very encouraging.
It wasn't only on stage that Clark often took things to extremes. He also embarked on an exhaustive career of drug-taking. He once said he thought it was the job of an artist to experience different states and report back.
With hindsight, it may not have been the wisest thing, but it was without question the path I had to take, because it was all the wrong things. The things that I immediately picked up on as being the worst thing I could possibly do were the things that I had to do, and I couldn't really stop myself from feeling compelled to follow that through. But that's okay.
He retains the sort of classical and the punk as the 2 extreme poles of his sensibility, and always the best work is where those 2 poles are, where he meets somewhere in the middle and where those 2 energies are in tension.
My set is amazing, it even smells like a street. There's a bar at the end where I can meet you and your friends.
For this week's performances at Tate Modern in London, Clark's company of a dozen or so established dancers will be joined by members of the public, nearly 50 of them.
They vary in height and width, and yeah, I think that the idea was, I mean, I hope that it could be passed on from them to friends, or it could kind of become like a positive virus of sorts.
Let's have a look at tomorrow morning's front pages now after that piece from Steve Smith.